Hey friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm back with another video essay talking about the shitification of everything, i.e. why everything seems to suck now. In recent years, there seemed to have been a noticeable decline in the quality of the everyday products that we use and that we buy, from clothing and appliances to furniture and electronics. Mass production and a relentless drive to cut costs, I feel like, has led many manufacturers to prioritize profitability over durability and craftsmanship. As a result, items that once lasted for years now seem to break, wear out, or become obsolete in a fraction of the time. Planned obsolescence has simply become a common business model, which is very, very tragic and encourages consumers to repurchase items rather than to repair them. This shift not only strains our wallets, but it also contributes to the growing environmental waste, as more products end up in landfills instead of being reused or recycled. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the shitification of everything, of the things we now buy. A phrase I got from the YouTube channel According to Nicole, who has also made a video on this specific topic, so I highly encourage you to check out her video after you've watched this one. We'll look at something called consumer engineering, which is where I feel like this has all started. We'll look at planned obsolescence and why we expect things to be so cheap nowadays, and what all of this might mean for our future. If you're new here, my name is Imi and I make video essays on overconsumption, sustainability, things like the shitification of everything, consumer culture, but I also make a lot of content on food and my low buy year, which all ties into this kind of wider theme of intentional living. So if any of that appeals to you, feel free to subscribe, but only if you want to, and give the video a like if you liked it, because it really helps to support my channel. Okay, just a little word from our sponsor today, Tab for a Cause, which essentially helps you to utilize all of those tabs which you probably have open right now on your browser to raise money for a good cause at no extra expense to you. I personally stopped eating meat around 11 years ago, and my approach has always been to gently show people what you can do with just plants and vegetables, and to encourage them to add in just a few meat-free meals a week. This has always been important to me because I found the practice of factory farming particularly abhorrent, as they prioritize profit over compassion, denying animals even the most basic protections of space, sun, and a stress-free environment. This is why organizations like the Humane League are so important, and whose work I'd like to highlight today. Since 2007, their relentless advocacy has pushed corporations to end the cruelest practices. Thanks to their work, cage-free hens in the US have gone from just 3% to over 45%. Their global coalitions are improving the lives of billions of animals through bold corporate reform and grassroots action. And one of the ways we can help without spending a single dollar is to simply open a new tab in our browser. By using Tab for Ending Animal Suffering, every time we open a new tab in our browser, we raise money for the Humane League. In less than 30 seconds, you can set it up and your everyday internet habit turns into a powerful act of compassion. Those few ads that you see in the corner of your page, well, they generate the revenue that funds change. Over $1.9 million has already been raised for charity this way. And now your 47 open tabs can actually help end factory farm cruelty. So next time you're searching for a veggie-centric meal to make for dinner or lunch, remember that all of those tabs could be used for good. Check out the link in the description to get started. Okay, grab a cup of tea and let's get into what the hell consumer engineering actually is. I want to start with the practice of consumer engineering, as it feels like this is where it all started. Consumer engineering is the practice of designing and marketing products in a way that encourages frequent consumption, often by influencing how consumers perceive value, usability, and durability. It emerged in the early 20th century, particularly during the Great Depression, as a way to stimulate economic growth by increasing demand for goods. And rather than focusing solely on function and durability, consumer engineering blends product design, advertising, and psychological tactics to kind of create a sense of need or urgency around buying new items, even when existing ones still work. Consumer engineering uses a range of psychological tactics to influence our behavior, often tapping into deep emotional triggers and cognitive biases to encourage more frequent purchasing. One of the most common is the use of scarcity. I'm sure you've seen this many times with influencer drops, which creates a sense that a product is available for a limited amount of time or in limited quantities, which kind of triggers this urgency and fear of missing out, i.e. FOMO. And this drives that impulse to buy, even if the need isn't necessarily immediate. Similarly, novelty bias plays a big role. We are naturally drawn to new or improved things, so frequent product updates, even with only minor changes. They keep us engaged and eager to upgrade. Think about the Apple iPhone. This is a great example of this. Often they'll tweak just like the camera to improve the phone, and they'll create a whole new model just for that the following year. Every September they seem to come out with something new. Another is making a limited edition of an item like the pink Stanley Cup. Seeing those videos was quite wild, of people queuing up and kind of barging each other for just the same product but a different color. Social proof is another powerful tool where products are marketed as popular, best-selling, or endorsed by a celebrity or an influencer. And this taps into our desire to belong and conform, making us more likely to follow the crowd. Anchoring is also common, which shows a higher priced item first to make a mid-range option feel like a better deal, even if the actual value isn't significantly different. Consumer engineering also exploits planned obsolescence to make us feel dissatisfied with what we already have, reinforcing the idea that we need something newer, faster, or more stylish to stay relevant. And all of these tactics work because they tap into emotional responses, status, security, self-worth, identity, rather than logic. And the ultimate goal is to blur the line between want and need, turning consumption into a form of self-expression or problem solving. The more emotionally invested we are in a product or a brand, think brand loyalty, the less likely we are to question the cycle of buying and replacing, and the more profitable it comes to keep us in that loop. So let's move on to planned obsolescence. As mentioned earlier, a key aspect of consumer engineering is its role in planned obsolescence. Planned obsolescence is a business strategy in which products are intentionally designed to have a limited lifespan, either through physical deterioration, a lack of software support, or making them feel outdated compared to the newer models. This tactic ensures that consumers will need or feel compelled to replace items more frequently, fueling continuous sales and a steady revenue for manufacturers. Planned obsolescence can take many forms. Technical obsolescence, where parts will fail or software is no longer kind of compatible. We also have aesthetic obsolescence, where styles or designs change rapidly, or even perceived obsolescence, where marketing makes older products feel inferior or unfashionable. What might appear to be a flaw in the design is often actually a calculated move to maintain a cycle of consumption. Companies employ planned obsolescence because it creates a predictable, recurring demand for their products. And in competitive markets, selling a durable product that lasts decades might sound admirable, but it just limits repeat purchases and slows growth of the company. So by subtly shortening product lifespans or making repairs difficult or expensive or impossible, companies can ensure that customers return to buy the latest version. This strategy is especially prevalent in industries like technology. If you've ever tried to open your iPhone or open the back of your computer and replace parts and found it impossible, this is a perfect example. It's also prevalent in fashion and home appliances, where rapid innovation and changing trends tend to help normalize the frequent replacement. In Nicole's video, she actually uses her washing machine as an example of something that was only 8 years old, which actually is not that old for an appliance, and it needed repairing, but ended up being cheaper to replace entirely. And I mean substantially cheaper. While this approach boosts short-term profits, it has long-term consequences. It promotes waste, it depletes our resources, and it burdens consumers with ongoing costs. As awareness grows, however, more people are pushing for change, demanding repairability, transparency, and legislation that supports longer-lasting, more sustainable design. And there are definitely companies out there who are fighting against this design tactic, but sadly, not enough. The first example of a product being limited by design is actually the light bulb, which, even though it was initially made to last longer and longer, was actually quickly redesigned to force buyers to purchase a new light bulb sooner, all in a bid to earn more money and to promote that constant cycle of consumption. As mentioned earlier, a more modern example of this is Apple. Apple is a prime example of a company that skillfully uses consumer engineering and planned obsolescence to drive that continual demand for its products. Through sleek, minimalist design and powerful branding, Apple creates a sense of status and identity around owning its latest devices. I mean, each year it releases updated versions of almost every single product, iPhones, iPads, and MacBooks, with just incremental changes that are heavily marketed as revolutionary. It really taps into our novelty bias and our fear of falling behind. And older models will often receive fewer software updates. You'll probably experience a slowed performance on your phone, and it's subtly nudging us towards upgrading. So even if our devices are still functional, we'll still be nudged to upgrade. And Apple's ecosystem also encourages lock-in by making it difficult to switch to other brands without losing compatibility or convenience. AirDrop between devices is a really perfect example of this. This combination of emotional appeal, perceived innovation, and technical limitation keeps customers loyal and continuously buying, exemplifying how consumer engineering and planned obsolescence can be intertwined to fuel ongoing growth. It's very, very sad. Social media, and especially TikTok, have actually played a really big role in Apple's cycle of incremental yearly changes. With more and more people creating content and becoming influencers, the desire to have the most up-to-date phone that has the best camera and biggest storage is overwhelming. And I get it. Obviously, I am a content creator, but Apple uses this desire and they exploit it. What I find interesting is that as consumers, many of us seem to have accepted our fate and simply just pay the price for replacing our washing machine or upgrading our phones when they slow rather than looking for alternatives. And this really got me to thinking, are there actually any alternatives truly reliable and equal or better in quality that will last longer than the companies that we have really bought into and repeatedly go back to when yet another product breaks? And if there are, why aren't we supporting these companies instead? One idea I had is that we just simply expect things to be cheaper and cheaper these days. And I wondered, if that was true, how did we get here? Why do we expect things to be so cheap nowadays? I think we expect things to be cheap nowadays largely because decades of globalization, mass production, and aggressive marketing has really reshaped our understanding of value and cost. As manufacturing shifted to countries with lower labor costs, companies were able to produce goods more cheaply and at higher volumes. And these savings were passed on to the consumers, normalizing low prices and conditioning us to expect more for less. So big box retailers and online marketplaces have further kind of amplified this by competing on price and convenience, reinforcing the idea that products should be fast, cheap, and always available. Amazon Prime, again, is a good example of making us believe that everything should be available all the time, or in just a matter of hours. At the same time, marketing and consumer culture have driven this constant desire for newness and variety. So new clothes each season, upgraded phones every single year, trendy home decor on demand. And a perfect example of this is the kind of changing of the seasons and people making TikToks and content about stuff you need to decorate your home for autumn or for fall, or, Christmas decorations. And shops will buy into this demand. This is where social media and kind of big brand shops will come together and really just promote this constant consumer cycle. Even though I'm sure you probably have a cute little ceramic pumpkin from last year and other kind of decorations that you could probably use, we want to keep up with the newest thing and the cutest thing. And this whole consumer cycle of seasons in particular, I'm just thinking about this because I've seen so much content on it recently, really plays into this narrative as well. And to meet this demand, companies cut corners. They'll use lower quality materials. I'm sure you've noticed this when you buy things recently, and they'll reduce production costs where possible. We've become used to this cycle of abundance without fully questioning how it's possible or what it costs behind the scenes. The true price of cheap goods is usually hidden. It's usually exploitative labor, it's usually environmental damage, and products that wear out quickly, forcing us to buy them again. So in the long run, we often pay more. And it's not just at the checkout. A great quote I got from According to Nicole from her video. She said, "The more things we buy, the less we're typically willing to pay for them. And the less we're willing to pay for them, the lower quality they're going to become in order to meet that expectation." I think Shein is an example of this. So while I think the tide is beginning to turn on Shein, they still exemplify this idea of lower quality, fast-paced, cheap product cycle. And Shein has significantly contributed to normalizing the desire for inexpensive clothing, often at the expense of quality and ethical labor practices. Well, actually, definitely. So by offering an extensive array of trendy apparel at remarkably low prices, Shein has cultivated a culture of disposable fashion where consumers are encouraged to just simply buy frequently and then quickly discard garments so that they can replenish those with more trendy items. I'm sure it's no surprise to you that this business model not only diminishes the value of clothing and labor, but it also fosters a cycle of overconsumption and waste. The company's rapid production cycles and cost-cutting measures have raised serious concerns regarding labor conditions, to put it mildly. Investigations have revealed instances of workers enduring excessive hours for minimal pay, with reports of 18-hour workdays and wages as low as 2 cents per item. Additionally, Shein has faced allegations of utilizing cotton sourced from regions associated with forced labor, further highlighting ethical lapses in its supply chain. Despite public commitments to improve labor practices, ongoing reports suggest that significant issues still persist, again, unsurprisingly, underscoring the complex interplay between consumer demand for cheap fashion and the ethical implications of its production. Not to mention that Shein have actually been taking advantage of a loophole in the UK import tax system. I think it's called the de minimis rule. And a quote I found about this in an article, which I've linked below, it said, "They have taken that small loophole and turned it into a colossal competitive advantage." The retailer essentially ships hundreds of thousands of packages to its customers in the UK every day, each carefully calculated to fall beneath the de minimis threshold. The result? Shein's tax avoidance game has saved the company millions in duties, all while UK retailers are left footing the bill. So not only does this have an impact on the local economy, but it also impacts small businesses that cannot compete with the sheer audacity and volume of Shein. In conclusion, the normalization of cheap disposable products, especially within the fashion and tech industries, has been driven by powerful forces of consumer engineering and planned obsolescence. Companies like Apple and Shein exemplify how psychological tactics, rapid trend cycles, and strategic product limitations can manipulate consumer behavior to prioritize novelty, convenience, and perceived value over durability, ethics, or sustainability. And of course, Apple and Shein are not the only companies doing this, but they just happen to be prime examples of utilizing these tactics. So while these strategies benefit corporate profits, they often come at a significant cost. Exploitative labor conditions, environmental degradation, and of course, a culture of overconsumption that undermines our ability to make mindful, long-term purchasing decisions. Recognizing these systems is the first step forward in pushing back against these kind of tactics, whether through individual choices, supporting right to repair legislation, or demanding greater transparency and accountability from these brands that we support. As consumers, we actually hold more power than we think, but only if we choose to wield it. If you found this video essay interesting, you might like my essay on why the low buy trend is taking over in 2025. And I think it has a little bit to do with this topic. As always, please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below and whether there are any topics that you would love me to cover or touch on. Okay, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like as it really helps to support my channel, and consider subscribing so that you never miss another video essay. Okay, thank you so much. See you next time.